And we're going. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 14th episode of the Temple podcast. That's probably wrong, but it's somewhere around that. And with me today, I have a great guest. It's Mitch, Pili, and then Pilipowski. Tell me about that one, right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Okay, brilliant. All right. Well, we didn't trip up on the first hurdle, so that's great. How you doing, mate? You good?
I'm going great. Thanks for asking. I'm sure you say all your guests are the best guests.
Every guest I have is the best guest because they're willing to come on this. So I'll be honest. It's a very large. I have a very large best guests list, which includes everybody that's been on it. But no, I'm serious. I'm really happy that you came on. Obviously, you're one of the head ESL boys, so people like me actually look up to you. That might be, I don't know. Karath seemed to find that strange that exists, but for people like myself, you are the A standard, at least in Australia. So it's a pleasure to have you on, mate.
That's good. Yeah, I think it's a little bit strange as well, like that people look up to ESL talent or whatever, or domestic talent, because we're always like looking at ourselves and being like, man, we don't do that good of a job, and we're looking at all the international talent and thinking they're super great. Yeah, it's nice to have someone think that we do half okay.
Yeah, well, I would say it's probably better than half okay, but then again, that's because when you live in, I guess, the sewers. You know what I mean? Like, maybe you guys don't understand how low down it really gets, because you're just like so used to this high standard that it's like, man, they couldn't get it any worse than this. And then you watch like one. Okay, you know what? I don't want to.
I think some people wouldn't be aware of it. Personally, for me, I mean, I've played my fair share of. My CSGO career wasn't super fantastic, so honestly, a lot of the tournaments and stuff I played were probably the ones that were being casted by some of the other lads. Even now, like I play casually and stuff, and I have some like up and coming like talent and stuff like that cast my games, which is pretty interesting. Always love having a little look and seeing how they're going. Some pretty enjoyable stuff.
It's definitely grassroots. I'll give you that.
A bit like your background that you talk about the sewers. There you go.
Yeah, it's real bad. Oh yeah. Oh, you mean this? No, this is HD, dude. So that's
yeah. Gotcha.
Solid banter right there. I originally had a picture of just some random temple that I got off the internet, and then I was like, you know what? This is about CounterStrike, so I should probably put a CounterStrike background, and there is a temple there. So.
My question is, who do you put in the little cage down the bottom there? The little, are we putting Karath in there? That's what I want to see in there.
Oh, that would be a good idea. I should add like little faces into the cage.
You imprison everybody who's on your podcast. Just chuck them in the bin.
I have your souls now. It's like I'm collecting all the. I was trying to think of a Marvel villain that does that, but then again, just completely off. The back of nothing. So
I'm gonna move my camera over on top of your head, so when I look at you talking to me, it will look like I'm actually engaging in the conversation rather than looking at something else. Oh, look, I'll move it back a little bit more, but yeah,
that's great. Go on. Yeah. All right. So let's get into it, because obviously we could go on forever about random temples and my shitty backgrounds. But I'd much rather talk about yourself. So, as you mentioned just then, you've had actually some player experience. So, can you give me just a run through of your I guess teams that you've been in on your run?
Oh man, all right.
Or at least moments to you that stand out in that.
Yeah, I guess I'll go back to the start of when I started playing, and I'll do a really brief thing of like highlights and teams that I was on. So I actually was a Call of Duty player before I started playing CounterStrike. I didn't play any other iteration of CounterStrike, and also played a lot of StarCraft and World of Warcraft and other kind of stuff. And then I pretty much moved our entire Call of Duty team into CounterStrike. When CSGO came out, we stopped playing COD because it was really dead on computer. And we played our first season of good old Cybergamer Amateur. I think that was the first amateur competition, or maybe the second season, first or second season of Cybergamer. And we just brought the whole COD team over. Only one of us have ever played Counter-Strike before. And we ended up winning Like the first season that we ever played in amateur, having never played CS before, we like practiced the game pretty hard and tried to get really good really quickly, and that seemed to go okay. We played a couple ODCs. I think it would have had to be like qualifiers for like overseas events that Voxy would always win and stuff like that. We played in a lot of those, and I think the highlight of those times were we won amateur really, really easily, and then we also played like an ODC where there used to be this team. I don't know if anyone remember this team, but there was like a couple of good teams in Australia. You had like, I think this was even before like there was like a proper immunity squad. I think maybe Sniper might have still been on Vox Seminor and stuff like that, but it was like Vox Seminor, we won everything. Then you had like these other teams like who were below them, like Avant Guard with like Tonks and stuff in it. And then you had this team called like Storm CN, which was full of like these Chinese boys who actually like upset Voxy. And like my pride and joy of like those old days is like we beat this team who once upset Voxy. You know, that's the level we're going to. It's like, yeah, you beat somebody who took a like random upset off a good team, kind of like thing you're looking at. After that, and like playing an amateur and stuff like that, and a couple of ODCs, I played with a team called Encore. I guess would be the next like notable team. Be like, I don't know if people know like Tegs, who played in like CGS. I played with him and Inertia, like another old name. Who else is in that team? A couple other people. And I ended up like leaving that team because I had other stuff going on in my real life. And then I played with Aura, with someone you probably know a little bit better, Dizzy Life, and some other people like that. And we won like a local Melbourne LAN and some other stuff. And then I went on to like an Avant-Garde roster. And then much more recently than that, Skyfire and Aura would be like the main two teams that I played with, which is like your like low Division 1 teams, MDL, average MDL team, went to like 1 or 2 Nats, stuff like that. And yeah, I think the other thing would be I won a Division 2 thing, like a CGI or whatever you want to call it. And I think, yeah, I played in like a whole bunch of teams that were like on the cusp of going into Division 1 and then died, like probably 4 teams like that. And I qualified for like a nationals and then didn't end up going. And yeah, my whole career was filled with like a whole bunch of just like non-committals from teammates and like getting screwed over and stuff like that when I put a lot of effort in. Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
You're in the Game of Thrones.
Can be pretty rough sometimes.
You're in the Game of Thrones of esports, just getting constantly backstabbed. Brilliant, solid. Well,
yeah, it happens a lot, especially at those lower levels for sure. You know, you get your Division 2 teams who just want to change roster every week, or you lose like one match and someone quits, or you know, someone just doesn't want to play CS for no reason week to week. Yeah, it's the classic.
Was it always shooters for you with the games that you played?
Nah, so I played World of Warcraft for so many years. I actually started with StarCraft, so I've been playing games since I was like my dad put me on the computer chair and like got me going, and I learned to before I could write with a pen. Like, you know, pretty crazy how many years I've been playing games at this point. But I started off with StarCraft, Brood War, and then I played a lot of StarCraft 2 and tried to get good at that and got half decent at that, like pretty much only playing ladder and like open cups and stuff like that. And I was able to like get into Grandmaster like 1 or 2 seasons and usually like floated around Master. And then I would get blasted in these open cups, which pretty much made me feel like, well, I'm terrible at this game. Like I could beat some of these guys, but then when I go deep enough into this open cup, even just like to the round of 32 or something like that, I'll verse someone who's just so much better than me, and you know, there's no point really playing. Then I played a lot of like Hearthstone, and like managed to like play a lot of open cups and stuff like that for that, and played a bit of a meme game. You know, some people won't really say it's an esport or whatever. But I enjoyed it, and I liked getting to like the top of the ladder and stuff like that. And it's nice to have little challenges in other games. which honestly was sometimes a bit of a distraction from actual CounterStrike and trying to invest my time in getting good at the game that I probably should have been focusing on a lot more. But, you know, me in general as a person, I could be really sporadic. So if I get interested in one thing, I'll just drop one thing and run on to the next thing and focus on that for a while. And that can sort of hamper your progress and stop you from actually being notable at one thing rather than just being good at a couple of things kind of deal.
The old what's it? The journeyman of everything, but a master of none. I don't know.
Yeah, jack of all trades.
There you go.
None,
wow, that was really jacked up. But yeah, you got what I was saying, which is the important part about most of the things that I say. So you obviously mentioned there that you play quite a lot of these games in these open tournaments, right? Which is interesting to me because, I mean, the way I've always played it was, I mean, even when I started playing Counter-Strike, you know, when you start watching it professionally, or watching the professional level, should I say, I think everybody at some point probably goes, oh, I want to be a pro player. But even for me, it was always like, well, I'm going to get to global elite and then I will play a professional a tournament, you know, whereas some people like yourself seem to just jump immediately into, I'm just going to play tournaments for this. So
no, I think it was more like you said, like I would always play like the ladders of things. So like for Counter-Strike, the reason why I jumped straight into a tournament is because I played Call of Duty competition for so many years.
Right.
I was pretty like average at COD 4. Like I wasn't that good. That was the most competitive sort of game, and I was just like sort of your run-of-the-mill, you know, intermediate player or something like that. And I played at one nationals at the end because I was like the substitute for a team, and one of their teammates just like ditched them, and I ended up going to that. And I played, you know, in some intermediate stuff before that. And then I also played a lot of the dead Call of Duty games, which is where my original CS team came from. So we would play like your Modern Warfare 3s and your Black Ops and stuff like that when they came out, and they would host CG tournaments, which is actually how I know a lot of the guys at ESL, because they used to be involved in that kind of stuff. So that ended up helping me a lot more than I thought it would. Like playing the game was probably a waste of time. You know, won some pizza money, ordered some Dominoes, but you know, nothing crazy because of the prizes. But I learned a lot of good things and met a lot of good people from that. But the other games was more a case of exactly like what you said. Like in StarCraft, I would be like, I'm going to play the ladder system, the Blizzard ladder system, and then, you know, once you get to a certain degree of like, oh, I'm actually pretty all right at this game, that's when you go into your open tournaments and you realize you're absolute garbage at the game compared to some of the other people. Like, but just when you think you're starting to get half decent, it's the same thing in Counter-Strike. You know, some bloke is like, yeah, I'm global elite, I'm pretty good, and then steps into his amateur tournament, gets absolutely wrecked because he just doesn't realize there's a whole nother level. You know, you make it to the top of one food chain and you realize that you're at the bottom of another one that's much bigger than you and takes years to sort of master and get to.
For somebody who's like coming into the scene and maybe that they're fascinated with that, like playing it at a I guess a semi-professional professional level, how quickly would you suggest that person to start getting into things like Cyber Gamer and tournaments like that? Is it just, why not go into it immediately, or would you suggest to that person, hey man, just play the game a bit, get to, I don't know, MG or something like that, and then move over? Or would you just say, hey man, just find a 5-man and go?
I think there is a lot to be said for systems and playing matchmaking to get yourself to a certain level to where you actually understand the fundamental mechanics of the game and stuff like that. But then the whole next level of that, and the level that I think even a lot of people in professional, like, you know, the Division 1s, the MDLs, like a lot of these guys still don't get, is like the next level really is, and this is a thing that like that is the same problem as that intermediate sort of player, that the person that's always stuck in that intermediate sort of area, and the same problem that I've experienced for a lot of my career is that people don't realize that the next level of getting into things, once you get past your mechanics and you play up to a global elite level or whatever, you play your matchmaking, you go into your face at pug and you try to get to the highest level possible, or back in the day you had your ESEA and you tried to get into rank S or A plus or whatever, I've got 18 RWS, I'm the best, etc., etc. Is the next level after that is really you have to get an understanding of how to play the game as a team and how to be part of like something greater than yourself, which is where you really need to step into your cyber gamers and your face at tournaments, Instafrag, or whatever you have at the time, ESEA, and that's where you really hit that next level of understanding and you learn yourself a whole new array of skills and things that you need. And I think, like I said before, there's some people that they've mastered the mechanics of the game, or they're very close to got a really good level mechanically, but they will never learn those things, and those things will hold them back till they end up not. There's so many people, really talented players and stuff, they never get to that stage where you start to play on a team consistently instead of just jumping from team to team and learning a little bit, and they never get to that next level of understanding where they can become a lot better of a player rather than just relying on whatever the mechanics they've mastered at the other sort of levels, like your matchmakings and all that kind of stuff. Some people would just DM until, they don't have anything else to do and they don't think about anything.
So do you think there's like you talked there about there's obviously this what would be a good word for almost like a limbo in that intermediate area where a lot of players seem to struggle moving from that to maybe your MDL, like where people are actually playing, I guess, as a team rather than 5 individuals trying to shoot everybody's heads off. So what do you
I think that might be an unpopular opinion, but I think MDL is the new intermediate to bar a couple of the teams up the top. I actually think that, people are, in general, that is sort of the new limbo. Is a lot of these MDL teams and players are stuck at that kind of thing. Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you guys.
No, it's fine, it's fine. So would you say that MDL is getting very sort of aim heavy then?
Yeah, it's for sure aim heavy. MDL, I think, it's it really is just about like who's playing better on the day a lot of the times. I think there is certain teams that will try to take a better approach and try to work on, their map pool or sort of their team play and outplay opponents and actually learn to play the game at a better sort of level and learn from their mistakes and all that kind of stuff. But I think in general, MDL is a system where as long as you get to finals, it doesn't matter as much, and you can win enough games to sort of get to finals by relying on your aim. But then when you head into that playoff bracket, if you start to play some of the better teams, if you're one of those teams that's fairly average and you just, you're 10, whatever scoreline, 12 for 10 in the group stage or the season or whatever, you're just going to get straight matched up against Greyhound or Order or one of those teams that actually tries to improve as a team and play the game properly and all that kind of stuff. And that's where, that's not really going to do you any favors. So it's almost and this is the thing that's held me back from a lot of the teams I played in, and the thing that probably holds a lot of these sort of second-rank players back, that's really, really hard to overcome, is that they don't think about, while they're playing the season, the fact that, we're playing really aim-heavy or whatever, and we're getting these wins on the board, all just to play against one of those better teams who's actually trying to improve and get your shit pushed in, basically, and then, it's all for nothing, really.
So, again, this seems to touch on that idea that there obviously is a very large gap between your top, maybe even your top 6 and then everyone else, and then a gap between the bottom 3 and the top 3. Do you know what I mean? There does seem to be a very highly segmented gap between the different levels of play. So what do you think, if we talk about people below that top 6, and by that I mean below teams like Ground Zero and Genuine, Avant, things like that, right? What do you think is even the gap between those teams and then, say, people that are below them? What's the main difference that you see? Is it that they're obviously these teams are now trying to actually improve, on a strategical level? Is that the difference?
I think the eye test will tell you, and when you watch the games or you watch an MDL match between an Avant Gaming and one of the teams that's in the middle of the rung and they get really close, the eye test will tell you that they are very, and people will, and particularly those players will genuinely think to themselves, I could be just as good as X or what. man, back when I used to play in certain teams, there were some people that I played with that like genuinely thought, oh man, like we would play like a good team in a scrim, like I don't know, like the old like avant-garde, or like maybe once in a blue moon we would be able to get a scrim with Fox Eminor or whatever, and they get 10 rounds and they go, I can take it to these guys, like I'm just as good as these guys on my day or whatever. They actually think that to themselves, and the truth is that it's not true at all. Like the difference is, you know, your ground zeros or your avant-gardes. I mean, the massive difference for those teams in particular, I would point to the experienced players, the veterans in their team.
Mm-hmm.
I would point to the mindset and the goals that they set for themselves. A lot of these, I feel like a lot of these middle of the rung teams sort of operate on autopilot and they don't see part of this game. Whereas you're looking at an avant-garde, like a roster that's qualified for a minor and stuff, they set high expectations for themselves. They understand what the sort of goals that they're working towards are in the scene, or what the how do I say it? I guess what they're the only word I can think of is because I've looked at far too much like business stuff this like last month or whatever, because I've had exams, is like key performance indicators, where you know you have your thing that you're looking to actually achieve, or the thing that you're looking to tick, you know, the box off of, oh, I've actually done what I set out to do, or I'm actually looking to improve on something. And these teams, they don't set themselves up anything past, I want to win my next MPL match, I want to win this scrim tonight, or I want to do this specific thing, or I want to play well in the server. Whereas you know your avant-gardes, your ground zeros and stuff like that, it's like a longer term thing.
Yeah.
They want to improve, they want to get better on more maps, they want to take it to a team like Greyhound and try to get a map upset off of them. Like it's higher expectations, but also realistic to what they have. And I feel like those lower sort of teams don't know how to, one, set their expectations realistically, and two, they don't have they don't look past, you know, the sort of the short term.
So I realise I may be asking you to perform a miracle here, but do you think there's a solution to that problem then? Is there something that you would say to them, all right, guys, this is what you need to focus on? Or, do you know, or is there some sort of thing that needs to happen to fix that? What would your advice be? Or suggestion?
If I was going to solve a problem like this for like, you know, a failing business or something, I would be like, you know, you got to look at whatever the case study is or what you're going to reference to. And I mean, you have a bunch of those kind of things in CS. Like I would point to a team like, I don't know how many people would remember certain teams, but I'd point to a team like your Trash Pandas or something like that. You know, like look at where those players have gone. And I would start to look back at like, what did they do so well when they were sort of playing and improving, and what kind of attitude did they have, and how did that, okay, maybe they didn't achieve so much when they were a team together, but how did that sort of shape the players in the future and their mindset and how they approached improvement and how they sort of went on to do better things further into their career. Because, you know, you're looking at that roster, you have players like, you know, Jira, Sterling, Hazza, maybe, I think, might have been in there at some point, you know, like a bunch of players who have now sort of started to blossom into much better players, you know, with a lot of, how do I say it, like good leadership and stuff like that. But just the sort of things that you want to go back in a player's history who has actually succeeded now and see if you can sort of track backwards to a point where you can say, oh, this helped them start to improve at some point. And then you can even look at your failure cases like, I don't know, someone like me or someone else where it's like, you know, the teams didn't do the right thing, or they messed something up along the way, or there was clear wrong sort of mindset that they employed as to, you know, when they were competing.
So look at the examples around you then, I guess. Like you said, look at the case studies, and you'll find what you need in, I guess, in the ashes of everybody else's phoenix that has died. You can rise from that.
Either died or succeeded. I mean, you'd be looking at, like, that's the thing, right? You can look at some of these teams and people could look at them on paper and go, that was like, I don't know, like a team like Trash Pandas or something, like I don't think they ever won anything crazy, but it was actually a success.
Mm.
If you look at the long term of it and where people have moved on to from there and all that kind of stuff, it's like that set the groundwork for everything else in the future.
Mm. So I wanted to segue here into obviously your casting career, because now you're casting for ESL, and I wanted to ask you. Obviously, we talked there about your time playing, but what was the switch like between your time playing the game and then moving into that sort of commentary role?
So I think the switch happened pretty unexpectedly. When I started casting, I never did the grassroots approach. I've never casted at home in my bedroom. I've never grinded my way up like a lot of other talent do, where they specifically focus on being talent specifically. The transition happened for me off the back of a failed CS roster and starting to have my priorities in life change and realizing that playing games when you're not actually winning anything and when you're not moving in any specific direction isn't really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So off the back of like sort of another failed season of intermediate where I think I can't remember what team it was, but it was probably off the back of like a Skyfire team or something like that, where we would have probably been in intermediate or like qualifiers for MDL or all that kind of stuff. And we probably didn't, maybe lost a close game in the grand final. We didn't win the thing that we'd put so much time into. You don't actually meet the goal that you're looking for. So the guy who's my duo partner now, Elfish guy, Jordan Mays, put out on Twitter, hey, we want people to cast this thing. I think it was the Zen League at the time. We want people to cast it. And me as a person, I've done like a lot of other like performance stuff in my life. Like I did a lot of like musical stuff in school and whatnot. So like I felt pretty comfortable like talking in front of people, like doing all that kind of stuff, even though I don't think I was super as comfortable as I thought I was going to be, and like I had to sort of improve over time. But yeah, I just literally dropped him a message, and as I said before, tying back into the old like Call of Duty stuff, this is a guy who used to cast my Call of Duty games, and some of the other guys used to like they had like a little thing like one of the guys that works at ESL now used to run like a little caster group that used to cast my Call of Duty games like in 2013 or something like that. Ended up working at ESL. Another guy who I like played CounterStrike with ended up being like the product manager or whatever, or played CounterStrike against, ended up being the product manager at ESL as well. Mm-hmm. So because I knew a couple of the people there, and I knew this guy who had like been like, hey, I want people to come and cast this event or whatever, I just messaged him. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a go, basically, kind of approach. And then I think literally that weekend I was doing a desk for Zen League. And since then I just haven't really stopped casting, because I don't think I was ever like good enough in terms of a player to make it worth it, to really stick to playing and commit to it as much as I used. And, changing priorities, like, moving out of home, needing money to live off of and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. You can't just, I couldn't just practice 4 or 5 hours a night anymore like I used to and not make any money. I need to work and need to do all this other kind of stuff. So that's what kind of killed my playing career. And when I started casting and realizing that, you can get paid for doing that kind of stuff, and that I didn't have to throw all my CounterStrike knowledge and hard work and stuff like that directly in the bin and just pack up and move on to something else straight away, that I could actually still apply what little I had in some way to something else. It just made sense.
Right. So you kind of just sort of utilized the skills that you'd learned in that Counter-Strike and then sort of turned it into a more, I guess, realistic goal at that point in your life, right? Where it was like, okay, this isn't going to work out at this point. I've got to change something. And I mean, you know, it sounds like it's at least you were able to still continue doing it and in a way being involved in it. And now you're obviously one of the head at ESL, and the last Sydney event you did the stage match. That is, I'm not losing my mind on that. That is correct.
No, Rob did the stage match. I did the quarterfinal and the semi-final.
Yeah, I meant the quarterfinal match. On stage match. Yeah.
Yeah, on the stage match. Yeah, the semi-final and the quarterfinal.
Yeah, with Alf. Yeah. So how was that experience then? That must have been. I can't imagine. It must be a bit of a jump up from working in a studio to, oh shit, there's like, you know, 2,000 people right there. Do you know what I mean? Is that what was that like for you?
I think I'm lucky that I'm not a person that gets really excited in general and really like over the top. So I think I didn't really, I get like way more nervous and anxious for like so many other trivial things in my life. Like, oh man, before working into a uni exam, like I'm like, oh God. But like, like talking about CS is something that comes so easily, and it's something that I'm always been passionate about, to the point where like I feel like I put so much effort into trying to do a good job at it, and I try to do my research before things, and I try to like make sure I do as good of a job as I can, and I'm always trying to constantly improve that. Like, I don't get nervous for it because I feel like
there's no way you're going to mess up.
Well, even if I do mess up, it's like only a learning experience kind of thing. Right, like I try to take a really positive mindset into it kind of thing. And then I feel like, I don't know, it's a really cool experience. It's really awesome to be able to do it. I would love to do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, Sydney is kind of the only real opportunity that we have to do that kind of thing. So it's good to see that we even have that.
Yeah, it's obviously it's a start, you know, and we're getting that in. I don't know what this the next one that comes up is, because obviously they just announced they didn't just announce, but they announced the major circuit, and the next one after, of course, the immediate next one is actually, I think, goes over the usual time in that May spot for Sydney. So we'll see what they do with that. That'll be interesting to see the time change. Was that around that time for me? It was I think just going into exams, or at least getting close to that. So were you studying at that time, and did that impact at all?
Yeah, it actually kills me like every single time. I don't have exams in May, but I swear every single time at IEM Sydney, it's like they managed to put all of like my mid-semester like important things on at that time. And crazy. That's like my birthday as well. It's like on the 9th of May. So like every single time, Sydney's like right next to a bunch of other stressful things in my life. It's really, really hectic. But the time that I'm casting CounterStrike and the time that I'm at the event is like the least stressful time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it feels the best out of all the other things that I do, like studying and, you know, spending time with other people and stuff like that. 10 times more stressful than casting CounterStrike, which is something that I feel really comfortable doing and that I love doing.
Do you have to? I guess, do you have to get into a zone almost to switch from, I guess, your studying and that I guess, I don't know, normal life and then the esports side of things? When you go into that stadium, is there like a, I don't know, it might seem crazy, but like a ritual or something that you do to sort of go, all right, I can do this every time and that's how I know I'm good? Is there anything like that?
So I know other people do stuff like that. The truth is that we're really lucky at ESL Australia that we have people like Jordan and some of the people that don't cast anymore that have been such good mentors to us, and people that have given us, even Kevin is like a big mentor of mine, people that have casted with us for so long and given us so many good tips and given us so many reps and practice that, you know, it's not needed for anything else to really happen. You know, I don't need a crazy ritual. I don't need like to feel a certain way or whatever. I've put a lot of practice and effort, and we like try to like review our VODs of how we cast and what we do wrong every now and again, and just be self-critical while we're casting, and try to do a really good job of like practicing on your smaller events like your AUNZs and stuff like that, and then trying to do justice to events that much better talent than ourselves do, like your pro leagues and like your premier events that, you know, we probably still don't do as good of a job as some of the other guys, but we're always trying to improve, and we're always trying to apply what we've learned from doing the smaller events, and we enjoy doing both of them.
So is there so you talked there about it being sort of, you get a lot of practice in when it comes to working for ESL, and that's obviously, that can benefit you when you're going into that Sydney event. Do you have obviously in some fields of work, right before, especially in the game industry, game design industry, you often hear this like crunch term, where right before something gets released, there is like a crunch period. Is there anything like that when it comes to casting? Is that the few weeks going into Sydney, is there a lot more work you put into, I don't know, like I guess demo work or anything like that, or is it just we're just going to ease into it? What's the sort of process there?
I think we try to approach the times where we do work on AUNZ as like, and we even anticipate it a long time before the event happens. So when we're doing AUNZ, we might actually be more like focusing on improving ourselves for a Sydney event, or when we're doing like online group stage of a pro league or something like that. We'll be very cognizant and very well aware that there is a bigger thing that we're focusing on and improving on. In the time leading up to it. Unfortunately, with how scheduling works a lot of the time, it's just not always possible to actually get reps in really close to an event. But we try to be, I think Jordan in particular, when I say Jordan, that's Elvish guy, keeps it really organized, keeps everyone pretty well aware of like the things that are coming up, and tries to, you know, facilitate you know, culture or an environment where people are trying to improve themselves and stuff like that, so that they can do a better job all the time. So I think the other thing that I would mention in terms of crunch time coming up to event is just me personally. Obviously I'm like a color caster, not like a play-by-play caster, and I'm more of like an analyst kind of persona. So my big crunch time and my big prep is just doing my research, like going through every single team at the event and doing like a little profile or something like that of every team, and, you know, looking at all the players, trying to find interesting stats, trying to find, you know, work out a team's map pool. There's a million things that go into it, and that's the kind of thing that I try to look really heavily at, so that I can try to, I guess, give myself a lot of things to talk about, and try to keep it interesting that way, because I'm obviously not a really hyping kind of person in terms of a game a lot of the time, which is something I've tried to work on a lot. But yeah.
Do you, what you talk there about, like obviously prep before doing a match, is there like a certain specific things in that profile that you look for in a team? Is there certain things that you have like a go-to, I guess, formula for what you want to find out of a team?
Yeah, so I do an identical profile or a very similar profile for every team, and it's just something that I've, you know, I don't have anyone else to model off of for this, so it's something that I've had to sort of try to come up with myself, and try to think what are the things that I would like to know if I was watching a team. I try to consider less. I think I'm much more like angled towards a really hardcore CounterStrike person as opposed to like a normal sort of fan, but I try to do somewhat of a balance of both. So, I mean, I'll write a profile that includes like the players. It's the first thing I probably put. Like, I try to apply the same sort of sample size for every team so I can compare them, but it's obviously not really possible when some teams are way more active than others. So I try to work out, you know, how the players are playing, what kind of roles they play. I try to work out a team's map pool. I really look at teams' recent history to try to build storylines and work out, where the team's at and what their expectations are coming into the event, what they're looking for, all that kind of stuff. That's really important. I think those are the main things. There's a lot of other smaller things that I try to look at, and I'm trying to get better at looking at a lot of the smaller things. But the problem is that I think the things that are most worth focusing on and most worth prepping for are the simplest things, and are the things that everyone looks at, because they're the things that A, everyone understands, and B, helps you convey sort of the best points. Whereas when you start to get into the nitty gritty and the really nerdy sort of side that the 0.05% are actually going to understand, you actually do a lot of hard work for very, very little reward.
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about flashbang statistics and stuff like that, things that people don't really understand. And it takes a lot of time for even me to sort of understand, because even if you're looking at, flashbang stats or whatever, and it might have a little summary of it, it's hard for me to get a full understanding of what exactly certain little tiny stats mean, mm-hmm. and how to explain it to somebody properly. So it's better if you don't really get something, or it's really hard to explain something for someone to understand, it's almost not even worth doing it.
So there's almost like a simplification process that for yourself, because obviously, like you said, you look at it in a very like nerdy level where it's all about the statistics, and then when it comes into events like Sydney, maybe there's more of a, I guess, casual audience watching that. So there is a simplification process that you have there then for that to sort of make it, I guess, friendly for the casual viewer.
Pardon me, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time Jordan does a really good job of bringing up storylines and stuff like that, and that's the kind of thing that he works on really well, and those are the kind of things that your more casual viewer is really going to find interesting. Mm-hmm. I think I do try to simplify things down a lot of the time and simplify a lot of the big stats and try to work out ways that I can explain things and the context of things in a really easy to understand sort of way. Mm-hmm. Not because people are stupid or anything, or because they won't like understand if I put it in another term, but just to make it the most sort of friendly, easy to process, entertaining format you possibly can for a broadcast.
Right. Just so it becomes easily digestible, I guess. Is there a...
Exactly right.
Do you at all change that sort of... that style when it comes to maybe a smaller event? Because I can imagine maybe, I mean, I'll use this as a reference, right? When E-League came out and they did their first major, or those big tournaments, it was on TV, it was very much focused around explaining the very basics of the game, right, to an audience, because it seemed as though there would be a more casual audience watching it. So when it comes to sizes of events, this is obviously just like a question, but does it at all become, all right, the big Sydney event, we're going to simplify down a little bit, but the smaller AUNZ events, because it's more, I guess, specialized, are you going to, I guess, put more detail into that, or is it just the same throughout?
It changes, I don't think, in terms of the simplification of things. It changes in terms of what kind of things you want to focus. So like AUNZ, it's been pretty professional, all things considered, for the last couple of years, and even the other national tournaments. You're talking about your Z leagues and stuff like that. Well, they wouldn't be national tournaments; they'd be sort of regional tournaments, I guess, because you have some of the Asian representatives in there. But they've been very professionally sort of presented and very, dot all the I's, cross the T's, do the right thing, make sure you do a professional broadcast. But I think now they're starting to become a little bit more casual. Mm-hmm. Obviously the last one was very filled with all kinds of crazy segments and stuff like that, people just running wild with ideas and whatnot. I think you change in terms of the audience that you anticipate and how well you sort of understand that audience. And I don't think you can ever fully understand the audience in the first place and what they want, but it's about how I don't know, what kind of a product you're going to put out there, really. So for Sydney, it's very professional. It's very sort of try to be as entertaining as possible and informative and stuff like that, within the lens of CounterStrike and within the lens of, we're looking at these teams and all that kind of stuff. Whereas a product like AUNZ, it's a community thing. It's a bunch of players that everyone knows really well. Everyone sort of understands. It's something that you create for a specific group of people. So if you understand, what some of those people want and the kind of broadcast that really appeals to them, or you at least try to, you can never do a perfect job of it, right? But you tend to sort of change things to try to appeal to that audience. So do more casual kind of stuff for AUNZ, or take a more, even just in terms of attire, right? Like pretty professional attire for a stage game, but for your AUNZ, where shirts and like tradie sort of button ups over the top, it's like pretty relaxed, pretty casual.
Yeah, it's definitely I guess a different target audience for you. So I talked to Conky about this, about the I guess the level of professionality when it comes to the Counter-Strike scene, and keeping it professional, but also not losing the sort of personality that our scene tends to have. Would you agree with that notion that it needs to sort of stay in that smart casual area?
I think so. I think it's moving even towards a much more just pure sort of casual area, as opposed to like a smart casual. Obviously, there's a line that you can't really cross. I think Conky is a very good example of someone that embodies the kind of personality that is going to make a broadcast entertaining. And I think that he's going to be really, really good for a lot of these like community events, because obviously he's a pretty like loved community figure and stuff like that. But it can be really hard to build up that kind of personality and sort of use that as your main sort of thing that you lead a broadcast with, and then try to fit that into a bigger sort of event where you have to be a little bit more professional, because like I said, it's about getting the reps in, and it's about understanding what kind of a product you're trying to put out there. So it's a lot easier for me going from like a lot of really, really structured, professional or trying to be anyway, like AUNZs and, ESL Pro Leagues, and then stepping into a product like an IEM, because I've been sort of led the whole way by people who are my mentors to try to be good for these kind of things that they're setting me up for. Like all these people are making it a lot easier for me to step into that kind of environment. But for somebody who's a lot more on the casual side, and it's a lot more like very, very deeply integrated into the community, Twitch broadcaster and all that kind of stuff, it can be really hard for them to sort of adopt a lot of these important things, because I'm like the polar opposite of that. I'm the polar opposite of someone like a Conky or a Mac, and they're people that I love working with, and they do a lot better of a job on a lot of different things than I do. But I've been led the whole way by people who have a lot of experience and who are trying to foster that kind of professional side and doing the right thing as best that I can do it. And then now I'm trying to learn, that community side of thing and that casual and the entertainment value, because I'm not that really that kind of person in the first place, and I have to sort of adopt that for these AUNZ kind of events.
So you taught there, obviously, your style it definitely make sense to me, at least, that your style would be very easily transitioned into that Sydney event, right? Because you do have a very, a professional style, right? Where, as you said, people like, Mac and Conky, it is personality based, right? Which is, it's so fun to watch, but I can imagine there is definitely a level of like, I talked about this with Conky as well, where it becomes, can you still keep the essence of that style and the personality, but form it into a more professional sort of style when it comes to ESL? I imagine that would be difficult. Do you have any... it's obviously very different from your style, but would you have any sort of advice for converting that style over, or is that just not really, something that you have a solution for?
It's something that I'm trying to work out myself, because I'm really trying to do a better job at providing that entertainment value and providing a much more like community friendly sort of broadcast, and something that's entertaining in more ways than just, hey, here's CounterStrike and here's some things that I think are cool. Yeah, I think the best thing to do is, and it's literally the only reason why I've got anywhere with casting in the first place, is just to, you focus on the game and you focus on the things that you really love. But most importantly, I think it's really, really just like improving in CounterStrike. You focus on the people that know more than you, and you try to absorb like a sponge the most that you can from your mentors and the people that can help you and pass on that knowledge, because it can take 50 hours to learn something that someone like Jordan can tell you in 10 minutes.
Yeah, it does seem like, especially because obviously I'm mates with Rob Manick, and I remember going to Sydney, and even just the small things that he told me, I was like, that makes so much sense. Why didn't I think of that before? The little things, even from a player perspective, right? Which is something that I've learned definitely from doing this podcast, is that there is so many tiny little things that maybe you don't think is really important when you're coming into it from the beginning, and then you sort of realize over time and through people that have been in the scene for a while, oh, that is really important, and the small thing that maybe flew past your head back then, suddenly it all clicks and you go, oh, well, yeah, of course that matters. Even things like, an example would be the use of silence, right? And being your ability to use, audio, silence in the correct way, and not always speaking just for the sake of speaking, I guess. Was that something with that silence thing? Obviously, I've never thought that you've ever had issues with that. Was that sort of a natural thing for you? You came into that ability to just sort of, I guess, not feel like you have to over-talk over things? Especially as a color commentator, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier for me in that particular thing to just... I guess it's just like, it's not really my job to sort of lead that kind of style. A little bit, I get to do that kind of thing, but I feel like that's more of like a play-by-play thing of just controlling the flow of how things are going and how much you're talking and how excited you're kind of being. Because I think that's a really important thing, that it's very, very hard to learn, and it's something that you have to actually really think about and process for yourself, because you have to be very well aware that the viewer does get exhausted when you talk a lot, and it can be really hard to understand and properly adjust for all kinds of people who are watching the broadcast. Like, how exhausted are they going to get? How much should I be talking? When's a good point to start to pick up and the pace and stuff like that? When's a good point to slow things down in terms of not only just the round that's happening in front of you, but also in terms of the context of the entire game.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in going into that play-by-play role at all, or no?
I don't. I have interest in doing more play-by-play. I think I'll always be more of an analyst, like commentator kind of person. I think I would love to try to do a better job of being more of an entertaining personality and being a play-by-play or a hosting kind of person, but I don't think that I have the skill set for it, and it's something I think will take a lot of time and effort for me to slowly like get better at and be able to do, because I just don't think that I'm a really super entertaining kind of person, and I'm not super energetic like your Robs and your Conkies and your Knacks and stuff like that. But that is definitely something that you can learn, and that is definitely something that I'm very cognizant of, and I'm very much working on, particularly in your AUNZ kind of events. Like, AUNZ is a really, really good sort of training ground for, like, it's something I say all the time. It's like the perfect training ground for the players, but it's the perfect training ground for the casters as well.
Yeah. All right, so let's segue out of this now and talk let's talk about this recent change that happened. When did this come out? Was it yesterday? I'm talking about the order change. Obviously, they just dropped Zeph. Was that yesterday?
I think so. I think it happened before that, but HLTV on some of the domestic stuff can take a little while to get it going.
So Do you have any sort of thoughts on that? Obviously, I think they went into that ESL AUNZ champs, they won it, but it did seem like before that it was very rocky road, and it was a very rocky road. But I personally thought that winning that AUNZ champs, I worried that would stop them from making any roster changes. They would go, oh, well, it's all good, don't worry, we fixed it, it's all good. But they have made a change. So, what do you think? What do you think about it?
Had to happen. They're not meeting their expectations as a team. Like, I have to really censor myself sometimes in how hard I go in on a team like Order or teams that really set their expectations pretty high and try to really do a good job of becoming like one of the best teams or the best team. And sometimes it can be like you really have to sort of choose your words wisely on the broadcast and how much you criticize people, particularly. Obviously, you know, their goal is to go to the minors. They want to do what Greyhound's doing, maybe even a step further. And they have the backing to do that. They have the players that are capable of doing that, and they're not even getting close to those kind of goals, really. They're missing out on them time and time again, so something really has to change. I almost feel like they would have to change 2 players, in my opinion, but if you find the right player, it could definitely work. The thing is that it's so hard to decide who to cut from a team like Order because they're all so good. Like, they all have their merits. I think before I was kind of thinking to myself, I think Zeph's not playing well coming into the team, so he probably has to go. And I think I was thinking that someone like Hats would probably have to go because I'm such a big fanboy of Inns, even if he doesn't have the best statistics. He's the kind of player that I look at and he's like, man, like he can drop, 30 at an IEM Sydney or something like that, or you can just have that big game. He has that sort of potential and X factor to when they make it to a minor or actually make one of those goals, he's going to be the guy who has a big game or something like that. But at the same time can be kind of inconsistent. But recently, Hats has been playing so incredibly well. Like, I was looking at his stats at the AUNZ LAN against some of the other good teams in the region and even just across the board in terms of the games that Order's playing. And not just his rating, but like his entry statistics and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's just like, it's ridiculous. He's like, the form that he has at the moment pretty much makes him uncuttable. Before, like, he might have been a bit up and down, but as of recently, he plays so incredibly well that you can't really touch him. So be interesting to see who they're going to replace Zeph with. Just to touch on Zeph as a player, I mean, he's somebody that, I think I know a little bit about. I played on a couple of teams with him now, and I brought him to a LAN as well. So, and he's somebody that I've time and time again, I picked him up for teams and stuff like that because I thought he was quite good. I still think that if he finds the right team, he could be one of the best players in the region, but I don't know what Order did with him. I think they definitely messed that up. There's something wrong there. Like, I just think you look at that Order team, they have too much star power to give enough room to someone like Zeph to do well. And I just don't think it was fair to pick him up. A player like that and not give him a good enough role in the team to take the emphasis and actually develop into a star player and then carry them through to something like a minor. Whereas, you give other players in the team that have been on the roster for a long time more emphasis or more focus, in my opinion, just from the eye test and watching them play. That might not have been what they actually went for, but yeah, I don't think that really worked out at all, and I don't think it was fair for Order or for Zeph to sort of have that sort of performance. And then, even just compare that to them to a team like, your Avant-Garde or something like that, where they just give those younger players so much room and so much freedom to sort of thrive. And they obviously have a lot more of them. They put a lot more emphasis on some of these newer guys to come up and actually have the good performance, and you could see how that worked for them.
Yeah, it does seem as though the way I've been thinking about it is like they have all the right ingredients, but the recipe's wrong. They have they have EMAC, experience of a lifetime. The dude's got, obviously you want him there. He is a super solid IGL.
He's uncuttable. He's like the first piece you would put in.
Exactly.
So,
right. So he's uncuttable. Then you get Hats, uncuttable. Then you get
due to form though.
Yeah, in current form, uncuttable. Then you have Inns, who's this guy who just can turn up at any moment and really sort of put down the pain. And then you have
Alistair. I can forget Alistair.
Oh man,
go have a look at his statistics, mate. It's actually unbelievable.
Exactly, right.
I was looking at it, and I'm like, I look at so many players like stats and stuff like that overseas and stuff like that. And domestic stats can be so inflated, but I'm looking at Alistair's stats, and it's like he is simultaneously. I mean, the AWPA always has inflated entry stats, but on order, he's the highest rated player, I think. Simultaneously, the highest entry attempt percent and success percent, and the highest clutch rate at the same time. So he's literally running in. He's getting the highest rating. He's killing the most people at the start of the round, and he's winning the most clutches. And it's like, all right, cool. You just solve the game. Cool.
Yeah, it's like they're in God mode, and yet everything on paper says they should win, but they don't. And they always seem to come up short. And that's why it's so difficult to look at them, because there's not an individual on that player that is the problem. It just seems like, for whatever reason, man, and it sucks because you can see it every time. They come so close and then they just miss it. And I can't imagine how just heart-wrenching that must be. You put so much time into it. I mean, even you must understand yourself being in those situations, where you put so much effort into it and then you just fall short just at the last hurdle. I can't imagine. It must be crazy. And what do you can't even look at any of your teammates and go, well, you're the problem, because wait, he's just hit 30 frags in this game. I can't. Where do we go with this? So
I think you also got to look. I think that there's two sort of theories that I have in particular. That's like, number one, how they used Zeph, in my opinion, was just completely here's like an example of it, right? I'm someone who's played with Zeph a fair bit and played against him a little bit as well. And from my memories of playing against someone like Zeph, let's say you're playing T-side or Mirage, my memories of playing against Zeph is this guy is peeking out of connector and killing someone, and then just with a rifle, top mid or something like that, really sharp, just peeking out, killing you. Then he re-peeks and he kills more people, and he just kills your whole team by himself, kind of thing. And he just aggressive, gets in your face, disrupts everything, and there's not really a lot you can do about it. And he can do it round to round to round, and you can't stop him doing it if he's feeling it. Zeph in order is sitting on the A bomb site on Mirage, hiding behind default, and just waiting for something to happen, or playing hyper passive, just I don't agree with how they used him at all, and I don't think he was effective. And I'm not sure who's to, you can't blame anyone for that. You can't know who's to blame for that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I think you have to give some onus to the in-game leader and the coach, but also sometimes the player has to step up and say, hey, I need to play like this, or I'm comfortable doing this, and you need to make room for that kind of play style, because it just didn't work at all. Mm. The other thing I would look at is that I think Elmer Putty is probably a really good strategic coach, and he has a very, very solid understanding of the game. And I feel like it's really dangerous to criticize people like that sometimes, especially successful people, in terms of his YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. He clearly has a really good understanding, really good at breaking down all that kind of stuff. But you look at where Order sort of falls short in terms of the hurdles, breaking through and making it into a minor or something like that. If you don't have someone who's done that before, a veteran, someone who can sort of inspire you, give you advice on how to push you over the last hurdle, so I don't know, someone like Ferg or Sniper or something like that, he's not going to know what to tell you to push you over that hurdle. He has not been there himself, kind of thing. He can tell you how to change your setup. He can tell you in the pro meta how people are sort of playing, and he can structure practice for you and try to give you all the right things to facilitate you being the best team that you can be. But in terms of giving you advice from personal experience and pushing you over the top and getting that sort of veteran opinion, obviously you can get that from someone like Imagine, but I think that's probably something that Order definitely could have used a lot more in terms of having, you know, someone to push them over the top.
Yeah, it seems like, you know, obviously, like you said, he's a very, very good strategical coach. However, it might be that they need a morale leader of sorts. Do you know what I mean? To sort of, because obviously they are a very emotional team. I think that's fairly clear. So maybe that is, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe there's something they need, some sort of person who can go, all right, snap your heads out of it. We're not choking this. Let's get the last round, you know, in that sort of way.
And he could say that kind of stuff, but there's a difference between like the way that you say it and you know, actually
the weight behind
being
it.
effective in terms of and leading the way. I think I was even watching a most recent interview. I can't remember what player it was, but there was an interview with a really good player, one of the main pro players, or maybe it was about something that one of them said. I can't remember, but I watched it the other day where they said, okay, so here's the categories here's your sort of things that you need from a good coach. Number one, he needs to inspire you and motivate you and make sure that there's really good positive vibes in the team. And then hopefully later on, and number two, he can provide that sort of strategical edge that you need. And it's like, it's almost like the priorities might be kind of backwards in that kind of case, you know?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. All right, well, I think we'll move now on to the Cologne event just to finish it up. Obviously, ESL Cologne is literally right around the corner. It'll be starting this Tuesday. I think that's correct. Please tell me I'm not wrong about that. Yeah, this Tuesday it'll be starting. The bracket as of right now for the Australian boys is FaZe. That'll be their first matchup. If they win that, then it will be the winner of Furia and NRG. And then obviously, I guess the main sort of fears that you could have in this bracket that they're in right now. So just to list off the other teams, Liquid, MVP, and Na'Vi and Mousesports. Again, Liquid.
By the way, I am like the number one MVP PK fanboy, just in case you're.
Okay, so you're okay, so immediately MVP PK.
I care more about how MVP do than I do about how Renegades do. Much more.
Well, I'll be honest, they've got a tough first game, which is going to be against Liquid. And, wow, I mean, if there's anything that's going to shake you awake, that's probably the match for it. So maybe, who knows? Maybe we get one of those, that Asian CounterStrike upset where it's just everybody's aiming people's heads off and that happens. You never know.
Nah, probably not.
Nah. Okay, fair enough. Oh, well. Well, we could dream. So, obviously, I think one of the main fears that I have is, again, we talked about this before we went live, but obviously, FaZe are kind of in, you know, ruins right now. They're not looking great. They're trying the Neo thing. It's having limited success, to say the very least. Renegades, though, it's been shaky, I feel like, of recent time. They have their lineup now. They've had a little bit of time to work on it. It seems like if we're going to get a good Renegades, this is the time. So, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah. I think Renegades were like on some kind of a feeling before and they literally just looked to Visa. And I don't know if they can actually get back to that level and get that same sort of stride that they did before. I'd say it's probably not going to happen. I reckon FaZe is pretty up and down at the moment. So maybe if they're able to hit some kind of a stride as to before, they can make that upset happen. But I reckon this is going to be one of those tournaments, especially because it's so hotly contested, that Renegades will come into having improved. And they're going to do the classic Renegades of they're going to like lose in just ridiculously close fashion and then start on that like classic downward trajectory as always. Like I reckon it's going to be one of those things where it's like they're losing these games 13-16. They have one of those series where they lose in like the closest of fashions or whatever, and then they
Double
just
overtime.
like have a real rough time after that.
So do you think that if they lose against FaZe, it's probably going to be it? Do they have to beat FaZe in order to have a good run in this tournament?
Yeah, I think Renegades is a team that they need to make sure that they can get their heads in order really early on, especially with how much they've been like up and down as of late, and they've had different players and mixed results in different tournaments and not been able to play with the same lineup they had so much success with before. By the same token, though, I feel like the lineup before, man, like, how were they successful? They had like Jacob and Azza going off, and then Liaz and Grat were like all right, and then JKS was like phenomenal, like one of the best players in the world. So I just don't know if that's like a recipe for success kind of thing. How can you say like incredible as an in-game leader if you're Azza? Like, is Jacob going to be like that good? I think he is always pretty good. And if I look at like Renegades over the last couple of years, the best player on Renegades has not been an Australian, in my opinion, until JKS really stepped up. I think Jacob has been pretty consistently the best player on Renegades for ages.
Yeah. Until obviously the JKS recent change of form.
Yeah, that's right. So I just don't think they can really get it. They can get it together well enough to sort of make a run at such a hotly competitive tournament. Because at this kind of a tournament, it's like, okay, first round I play FaZe, second round I play some other top 10 team in the world, third round, like, it just doesn't get any easier. It starts off hard and it just gets harder and harder the further you go into the tournament, which is obviously how it should be and how it promotes like the most competitive sort of environment, and that's why this tournament's so exciting to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah. For you, how far do Renegades have to get for you to be like, oh, I'm happy with that performance, you know, or this is a team that can really make some improvements, and even, you know, compete in that top 5 in the world area, you know? Does it have to be a win, or is it you know, a playoff appearance? How far do they need to get for you to feel confident about it?
I don't think there's a point that they need to hit for me. I think they need to do better than some of the other teams that are like up and down. So I think Renegades, to inspire confidence, they need to either beat or make it further than teams in the top 10 that are a bit up and down. So I'm talking about like NRG with recent change, like MIBR, Fnatic, maybe throw Nip in there, definitely big. These are the kind of teams that they need to do better than to be impressive. And you look, if they go down to a Na'Vi or a Liquid, or I don't know, I would probably even put Vitality in that sort of bundle, and ENCE as well. I don't know how strong they're looking in terms of recent form. That's a team I haven't looked at enough. There's a couple of teams that if they lose to, you just kind of shrug and you go, yeah, all right. But if they losing like convincingly to like a Mouse Sports or an NRG or something like that, that's where I kind of just put them back in the bin and, you know, don't have a look at them for a while again.
Back in the bin. That's how I feel like that's what it's like being a Renegades fan, though. You know, you're either like on mad cloud 9 or back in the bin. So from the bin to the heavens, I guess, is the storyline for Renegades. So honestly, in this upper bracket, I'm almost more afraid of them playing Na'Vi than I am of Liquid, because I feel like for whatever reason, that original core of like Azza and JKS have this mad mind blank when it comes to playing Na'Vi, and they just have this PTSD of them losing group stage matches and majors to them all the time, and it just seems like for whatever reason, I mean, don't get me wrong, right? They've got Simple, so you've got reason to be afraid of them, but it does seem like for whatever reason, that team seems to be their kryptonite, regardless of who's in it.
I think it's a familiarity kind of thing for people like Azza and JKS and those kind of players that have played these certain players a lot. You're looking at like a Liquid or an NRG or even some of the Swedes, and maybe the Brazilians like in MIBR as well, that these guys, they know these players and they played against them like quite a lot. So even if like I don't know. For example, like a Liquid is a better team than a Na'Vi, right? But they played Liquid since the dawn of time in like NA Pro League, blah 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 blah. Like they're very like familiar with them, so they might feel like slightly more comfortable playing against a team like that than a Na'Vi, who on paper might be like a worse team, still a very good team, obviously, like a top 5 team in the world, but you know, a worse team than Liquid. By the same token, that might not be true. As well as that, I think it might be a stylistic kind of thing as well. Hard to say.
Yeah, I think that I almost want Na'Vi to play Renegades somewhere in this tournament, because I feel like if Renegades can beat them, that would be a good thing for their psyche. And like you said before, it's about them, finishing above top 10 teams. I think especially if it was Na'Vi, that would do a lot for their confidence. And I think Renegades is a team that kind of operate off that. They need to be feeling good in order to play well. So I think that as much as I don't want that matchup to happen, I think if it happens and Renegades win, we're in a really good position for the future of that lineup. But in the same stroke, if they lose, then here we go again. Like you said, back in the bin.
I think that could be a lower bracket final, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, say Renegades go into the lower bracket. Na'Vi could definitely lose to Mouse Sports, I reckon. Although it's pretty hard to say. I think the teams who I'm most keeping an eye on this tournament, and the teams that I actually care about and expect to like once we're getting into the later sort of stages of the tournament, are probably like Liquid. Whatever. Like Liquid is Liquid, they're the best team in the world, and I always like watching their games. But when I watch their games, I like to watch the team that's playing against them and judge like how good they are compared to the best team in the world. I think my most keen teams that I'm looking at is like Mouse Sports and Vitality and probably Astralis, because Astralis, this would be like, I don't think anyone's gonna like let it go if Astralis doesn't make it through that bracket, right? Like they're gonna play big, and then MRBR or Fnatic. It's like if you can't make it through that, I mean, once you make it to the upper bracket final and you're playing like an ENCE or a Vitality, that's where it gets like really tough. A lot tougher. But if they can't make it to like that upper bracket final even, then that would be just like like straight in the bin basically.
Yeah, it's crunch time for Astralis, it would seem. They're definitely on the edge of being pushed off the boat, and if they stumble here, like you said, before that upper bracket final, it would be, I don't think you're probably going to see a roster change, most likely.
I don't even know if they would. I don't know what's like I want to look at the top ranking, because I don't even know like these teams are like Vitality and stuff are moving into the top 5 rankings so heavily that like, are they getting pushed out of the top 5 anytime soon? Like, how many points are they actually ahead of everyone else?
No, they're pretty close, I think. Liquid is obviously a light year ahead of everyone else, and then I think ENCE is closing in right now on Astralis when it comes to points.
That's pretty interesting, and I think a lot of those like lower sort of teams. Okay, I'm bringing up the ranking now. A lot of the sort of like lower teams are like pretty close in points, I think. Vitality and ENCE are a lot further ahead of everyone else, like NRG and FaZe and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they probably won't get pushed out of the top 5, actually. But to put it in perspective, Liquid's got 1,000 points. Australia's got 534, ENCE has got 514, and Vitality's got 512. So Australia's could get pushed to like 4th. And if NRG have like crazy performance with Stanislaw at this event, or FaZe pull off some like BS, then they could like, I don't know, get a lot closer as well.
Yeah, I think obviously another storyline is that if Liquid win this one, that'll be them winning the I can't remember what it's called, but it's the $1 million.
The easiest Grand Slam ever.
Yeah, the easiest Grand Slam of all time. It would be, is it 4 in a row?
I think so.
Yeah.
I can't really remember, but I think they have already won like the 3 first Grand Slam events in this like sort of cycle.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Liquid are definitely looking really good. Like like you said, they're on the precipice of taking. I'm pretty sure I use that word right, but they're on the edge of taking that Grand Slam. They seem to be very much positioned to do it. However, this is a tournament which is very exciting to watch because it has pretty much all the stars in it. It's a Quentin Tarantino movie, but for CounterStrike. It's got everyone. So, do you have a random pick for who you think's going to win this one, or is it a liquid in the bag?
Oh, hold on. I'll go back to the bracket again. Who's going to win? I think Liquid's going to win it, but I want to see like a Vitality and Liquid Grand Final. That's what I'm really itching for. Because I want to see like how far can Vitality sort of push a team like Liquid. Because Vitality, I feel like are kind of overperforming a little bit. Obviously, like Zywu is always going to bring you some level of performance, but they have like really up and down sort of players in terms of like that Alex bloke is like really good at the moment in terms of his form. Apex has always been a player who's like, he either turns up and you win the whole tournament, or like you're just like bombing out way further than you thought you would have fallen to. And then like obviously RBK and MBK are just like they sort of do their job or whatever, but they can both sort of turn up and give you some really, really big rounds and give you a really good one map performance. So
yeah.
That'll be interesting. I want to see like a really good Vitality player team like Liquid. But I also feel like I haven't, like you probably are feeling like with how much you're keen on Na'Vi and stuff like that. I feel like people are kind of missing that Na'Vi like itch of seeing like Simple play a grand final or something like that. And they've obviously got their new player as well, so that could be cool to see.
Yeah. I'm honestly, it's strange because I think my two favorites that I want to see do well here are actually playing each other in the first game, which is Na'Vi and Mousesports. For me, I want both of those teams to do well. One, because I want Mousesports to play FaZe at some point in this tournament and just destroy them, because I feel like that's it. Just I don't know.
They already did that at
they sure did, and I loved every moment of it. I don't know why, but there's just something about watching Carrigan just shit on the team that kicked him out, and it's just beautiful. It's what Counter-Strike's really all about, especially when they're talking mad shit to each other throughout. It's really is beautiful. So I'm very excited about those two teams. Mousesports looks really good right now. Na'Vi, it's been a while since I've seen them, but it's Simple, so who knows? He might no-scope someone through a box again. You never know with that guy. So I think like you said, I think Liquid's probably the pick to win it, but I hope Na'Vi are in the final. That's me. So
me too. I think yeah, you're looking at teams like Ents and Astralis and stuff like that. They're like really good, and they're going to be the ones to like thin out the field for a lot of the way, in my opinion. But they'll probably fall in like semis, or if they get a really hard opponent because of the draw for some reason, like a quarter or something like that. And I think it's just like which core of players is like really feeling it at this tournament. Liquid's always going to make it super deep, but out of like Mousesports, Na'Vi, and Vitality, even NRG to some extent, like you have cores of players that are, they can either hit their like 150% or they can just play their like really good normal level, and they need like that little bit extra from everyone consistently across the board to push them that like little step further. And if they just don't have those extra like 5 kills or whatever from a player across a series or whatever his like little bit extra performance, then they won't make it past quarters or semis.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to be it for that one. I'm just going to say this as a wing so I can clip this if it does happen. But Na'Vi are winning this tournament, and I'm looking at the camera right now. This is definitely happening, and I'm just going to clip this part right here as I say Na'Vi.
Zeus MVP, of course.
Yes, obviously. Zeus MVP. Na'Vi's going to win it. Simple's going to get some mad clutch, and that'll be the game. All right, there you go. All right, so I appreciate you coming on, brother. It was really interesting to talk to you. Obviously, you've had a very interesting career, and I think you're actually a lot of your opinions on, especially the commentating side of things, would probably give a lot of value to people like myself and other people that are coming up through that commentating scene. So I'm sure that anybody who's in that commentating area will probably really enjoy listening to that one. So, or to this one, should I say? So I appreciate you coming on. Do you have anything to plug before we finish?
I mean, AUNZ's coming up, so that's something that I'm really looking forward to doing again, and just looking forward to what kind of opportunities we get in the second half of the year in terms of commentating, because I'm really, really excited to continue sort of developing as a commentator and seeing if I can try to take advantage of some more opportunities in terms of that. I think in terms of shout outs, it would literally just be towards all of my mentors who've helped me in terms of commentating. So probably the main sort of four that I can think of, and then not just in terms of commentating, but also in terms of people that helped me out, would probably just be Amin Nadu, Commando. He's like a project manager at ESL. He's like someone that I've known for a long time and really awesome bloke, and does a really good job on a lot of these local events. And now he's really involved in Rainbow Six. And then Sandman is someone that works at ESL as well. Ben Green, he's really, really awesome. Obviously, my casting partner, Jordan Mays, and Karath, Kevin, the guy you had on the last podcast, he's really, and probably Sniper in terms of being an analyst and doing a lot of big events and giving me some pretty interesting things to think about, would be someone else that would be a good person to pick the brain of about commentary and analysis and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I'm definitely gonna wing for that one, but it's a hard life.
It'll be a bit tougher to get on, I think.
It's a hard life in this podcast world. I'll be honest, but anyway, man, I've seriously, I really appreciate you coming on. So that has been whatever episode it is that we're on now. I think it's 14. I'm probably wrong about that. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next time. So that's been that, and peace out. See ya.